High School, and I'm here with my friend today, Kathy Noonan. And Kathy's the Director of Community Engagement for the University of Colorado. So she holds a position that is near and dear to me, helping students, figure out what they should be doing in college as well, and a lot of other things. I know the community engagement piece, Kathy, means a lot of other things as well. But you want to tell people a little bit about your role?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Yes, I'm Kathy Noonan, and I've worked at the University of Colorado for more than 20 years. And I've worked directly with students, trying to help them figure out their path why they're at college, what they're going to do while they're there, what comes next, kind of putting all the pieces together. So the community engagement piece is really making sure that they're getting involved with enough things on campus to supplement what they're doing in the classroom, because we know that what you're learning in college is not just out of a book. It's about so many other things. So we're looking to connect the dots for them on all of it.
And isn't that true? A friend of mine, Bobby Hood, and I are also doing a series on the Gallup-Purdue study, which talks about the things that kids need to do on campus to make sure that they have a life of well-being, and I love that you do that.
It's such a fun job to really make sure that it's all of the resources are really there. But, when you go off to college and you're trying to worry about how to meet friends and how to kind of wake up for class, the basic kinds of things, it's really difficult sometimes to think about the other pieces and how to find all those resources. And so that's why we have jobs, right? We're there to help students figure out how to get the most out of their experience. We know that college is really expensive. We want to make sure that they're taking advantage of the opportunities that exist and help them figure out how to create new opportunities if they're not finding things that kind of are a match for them.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll tell you, I don't know, since you've been in this for 20 years, you might be able to tell me, were those services available 20 years ago the way they are today?
Oh, no way. Students have obviously changed over the decades, and I don't know about you, but when I was in college, I was to call every Sunday at 6 p.m. from the payphone in the hallway. And that was like sign of life, right? It was, let's make sure that everyone's still alive, and can you send me 20 bucks kind of thing. These days, of course, students are in contact with their families and their support systems often, a lot more often than they used to be. And we know that as students have changed in that way, the university needs to change in what they offer and how they kind of care for students. Back in the day, it was kind of sink or swim to some extent, right? There wasn't necessarily a need for the support services, or that's at least what we thought. What we know is that we hear from parents all the time that, gosh, I wish these kinds of things were there when I was a student. When, I didn't know what I wanted to do or how to proceed to get support with things. And so we're understanding that as the decades go on, we've got to change, and we've got to get a little bit more current and recognize that students need things differently. And it's not a bad thing. It's not that they're less capable. As a matter of fact, I'd argue that they're probably a lot more talented than, and they've kind of got it together in a lot of ways, not all the ways, right? But I've got friends that have gone to top tier institutions for undergrad and grad and law school, and they tell me, gosh, I don't think I could get into those schools if I applied these days, competition.
Well, I do think that the kids today have definitely been exposed to a lot more than what we were exposed to when we were growing up. So, it is different. My son used to say this all the time, and my husband and I would laugh at him, but he'd go, Mom, kids today, are 40% smarter or further ahead than you were when you guys were growing up. And we're like 40%, right? It's funny that it was that precise.
Right.
But even though we tease them about it all the time, and we'll bring that up whenever we can, because that's what parents do, I really do kind of think that they probably are, that they are more advanced than what we were.
I think they are. They also have different needs, right? I think because we all, I don't know about you, but as a latchkey kid at the term of the 80s, we had to figure different kinds of things out. And they don't need to do those kinds of things as much anymore. And maybe that's good or bad. We could debate that all day long. But the reality is that I think the support that they need along the way, along their journey from really, I would say, elementary school on, it looks different than it did back in the day. And I think it's tough for parents. I've got 2 teens also, and I think it's tough to navigate all of that. It's tough to really know how to proceed on what do they need, how to kind of put on the gas and the brakes and which times to do that. So any support, I think, for parents these days is really helpful. Going to the experts is the way to go. That's what I do. That's what I do on all the things that I don't know. I don't try and fix my car myself. I bring it to the car guy,
Right. Well, and let's talk about another thing that's very different today, and that is, how do we go about helping these kids figure out picking a major? And, what is different today than it was back when we were figuring out the college experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I worked as an academic advisor for a dozen years or so. And so I think I saw a lot of students who really wrestled with how to pick a major, which is the right major, what are they going to do with that major? And I think that's for each family to decide how important, how not important that kind of stuff is. But I think there's just so many more pieces that go along with it today than there used to be, right?
Well, one big one, Kathy, is the price of college.
Oh yeah.
It's more expensive to go. So I think, what I remember when I was going to school is you could wait to figure out, what you were going to major in, because it wasn't this huge financial burden to say, oh, I'm going to take an extra year. I went back and I saw an invoice for my college. And at the time I paid $1,700 a year to go to college. Might have been a semester, but either way, it was a lot less. And I was able to do that waiting tables. I paid for my college waiting tables, and there's no way these kids can do that these days.
Right. Yeah, it's so different. I mean, with the high school senior, I am very aware of holy cow, these costs, you get your financial aid package back and you're like, I thought there was going to be more here. It's a little unsettling, but I agree. I think the stakes are higher in different ways than they used to be. And students often feel like their major has to be so directly connected to a career. And maybe that's true. It depends on the student, but it's a tough one to navigate for kids these days. That's for sure.
Well, there's definitely a lot of overwhelm that happens for these kids, because I think the deal is they get the joke. They understand that it's really expensive. So I think there's a lot more pressure on them to make these decisions. And I think that just the overwhelm factor of, oh, I've got to make this decision, I've got to make it now, is really tough. So I think that, you said earlier, you don't go to a mechanic, or you don't fix your car on your own, you go to a mechanic. There's opportunities for them to get some guidance in this as well.
Yes, I think, I'm a pretty big reader, and I've got plenty of friends who are in the same boat with high school seniors who are not big readers. So I like to pass on my knowledge to them from the things that I find along the way. And I think we need our people, right? Like when they say it takes a village, they're not kidding. And I think we think about that from the younger years, maybe from, elementary, middle school kind of thing. We don't necessarily think about it takes a village for high school kids and beyond. And the reality is that things are so different than they used to be, that there's no way that we could know all of the things that we need to know. We've got to tap into those experts along the way and the resources that are available. And thankfully, there are so many, like you. I mean, the work that you're doing, and once they get to college, there's a lot of support. I think it's just making sure that you and your student are tapping into the support networks that you've got available to you.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I see too is that, I hear lots of times that, oh, the high schools really are not helping as much as parents expected. And, sometimes what I see is that the students don't know the right questions to ask, and I think, so I think that's difficult too. I think the counselors sometimes get a little bit of a raw deal on that, in that, when you have a student sitting in front of you and they're like, I don't know, what should I do? Instead of coming in and have been thinking about and kind of taking some of this on themselves to say, let me think about the hard questions. What is it that I am interested in? How do I want to, live my life? And I know they're hard questions, but I just don't know that we're having as many conversations around that as we possibly should. Either whether it be in the household or at the high school level. I know what you do is all about that, right?
Right.
But how do we facilitate maybe some of those conversations earlier in the household? I think is something else that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, something that seems to be missing a lot of times is asking young people about not a major, not a career, but things that kind of are that they enjoy, things that they seem naturally inclined to do. And there's all sorts of assessments out there that you can take if that's not how you operate and how you think. And I think those are really helpful a lot of times. But I think also just sitting down for a few minutes and actually being thoughtful about this. When I think about my two kids, they're so different, and the things that they probably should be pursuing in the world are wildly different. And it doesn't make one better than the other. One is much more traditional than the other one, and second child is less traditional. There might be some birth order stuff there, but
Right.
he's amazing in so many ways. And I, as a parent, just have to really change my thinking and say, okay, how do I support this one and the things that he wants and needs? And that's outside of my kind of comfort zone. He's a creative type. I am not. And so I have to really be thoughtful about how to serve him well and get him connected to the resources and the people that really know those things better than I do.
Right. And by having those conversations, I think it really just helps them look within. And one of the things that I see with my clients is the kids, especially in high school and those freshmen in college, they have such an aha moment when they hear that they can choose to do something they're interested in and something they love.
Right.
You see them kind of going, really? Like it's a new concept. And I'm like, guys, you can choose. And I think now more than ever, you can craft really your own career path because there's so many new ideas out there and ways to do things. But I love seeing that aha moment.
Yes, it's so great. And I think what you're saying is tied back to what we were saying earlier about generational differences. And that years ago, it didn't really matter so much what you wanted to do. If you were a certain socioeconomic background, you were going to college and that was going to get you a job, right? Like that was kind of the trajectory. And these days, the jobs that our high school and middle school students will be doing are very likely not in existence yet, right? So to prepare them to be thoughtful about the things that are kind of part of who they are, their values, even things that are their priorities, their strengths, thinking about things from a different lens will likely prepare them better for whatever happens in the future. I think gone are the days of thinking, oh, well, you're going to major in history, and what can you do with history? You could be a teacher. That's not the case anymore. And it probably never was the case, to be truthful, but it's just the kind of the tunnel vision that we had. And so I love the opportunity that's there to help students think outside the box a little bit, because let's face it, nobody predicted 2021 we'd be sitting in our houses, in our pajamas, working from home. Not that I'm doing that. But I think we just have to really realize that times are different than they were. We're not in 1987 anymore, and we've got to treat our students for the present and the future instead of the past.
Yes, and then let's get to the punchline on our title. The last place to look when picking a major is that list of majors. Right. And I'll tell you my personal opinion on it is the list of majors kind of puts you in a box. You can be a doctor, you can be a nurse, you can be a policeman, you can be a lawyer, you can be a teacher. And instead of, what I talk to my clients about is instead of looking at that and going, oh, okay, what do I do with that? To start with what you're interested in. And to start with, the skills that you have and your natural talents. As you know, I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach, so I have a huge affinity for, really looking at the natural talents you bring to the world. And let's start, crafting those together and figure out what a career path would look like. And then a major falls out of that. The major's easy at that point.
Absolutely. I think because we know that not all students that major in history are going to grow up to be historians. I think you're right. I think, personally, if you can find an area that is of interest to you as far as a career goes, and really dial into things related to that, internships or doing some research about, how much money do you make in that kind of career, or what degrees do you need? I think it's easy to dial back and figure out the major piece. So often students think that their major and their career have to be so directly connected. And that may be true for some careers, and for the vast majority of them, it's not. When I was in college, I certainly wasn't. I just asked my husband this morning, I said, we dated in college, and I said, did you ever see me working in education? Did you think? He said, maybe as a teacher, but not as an administrator. And I was like, yeah, me either. The younger me never thought about this. I think it's just, and I love my job, and I hope that I'm relatively good at it. And I think we just don't think about what are our strengths and what are the things that kind of drive us and move us. And that's really where people should be starting, because it's, I'm one of the few friends in my circle who actually really enjoy their jobs. And, I can feed myself and put a roof over my head. So I think we've got to really think differently about things. And absolutely, it starts with your strengths and your interests.
Yeah. All right. Well, Kathy, we have hit our time limit here. But I know we're both so passionate about this. We could probably talk for hours about this. But if anybody, if you're listening now and you have questions for Kathy, please put them in the chat. For anybody that's listening after, reach out. We are happy to, answer any questions that you have. Put those in the comments on Facebook, and we would be happy to get back with you. So Kathy, thanks so much. And have so much knowledge with 20 years being in the college setting that, I want to reach out more and do more of this with you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Kristen. Nice to see you.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.